Hey everybody, today we are painting an illustrative landscape with gouache. I'm painting in a watercolor sketchbook and I will try my best to leave links to the products that I'm using below. And as always, you can recreate this with the colors that you like most, or you can try to use the same colors as me. Just don't worry about it looking exactly like my piece and focus on having fun. You can see I've already started with the moon or sun, however you want to look at it, that's in the background. It is kind of like a nighttime scene, so it might be a moon. We don't know. I haven't defined that yet. And I have just been painting circles and then trying to create a gradient with them. So in the middle, we have a Naples yellow tone, which is this kind of darker eggshell yellow tone. Then we have the Naples yellow deep, I believe, which is kind of like an orange tone. Then I used a magenta. Then I believe it's an ultramarine blue tone, and from there I blended all of that into a black mixture. So this mixture is mostly black with some blue as well, and I'm using the black from my Holbein set just because I'm using it up. And with this painting, I had a few issues that I'm gonna talk about with the paint, but overall it should be a simple painting. Here you can see how I am trying to create this blend. Mostly it is just clean your brush, make sure that you get off a lot of the moisture so it's not completely damp, and then carefully go in the direction of the shape that you have. So here we have a circle. So my approach is that I'm just laying down all of the colors, and then when I try to create a gradient, I'm just very careful with my clean brushes and just clean, blend a little bit, clean again, and make sure that you don't blend the blue into the yellow so you would get a muddy green tone. And now I am starting with the greenery for this landscape, and I used a lot of this turquoise tone, and unfortunately for some reason the binder kind of separated from the color. I've been using Winsor & Newton gouache for many years, at least 5 years, and I've never had that happen to that extent. It's usually just a tiny blob of binder, if even, so that rarely happens. But for some reason, this turquoise tone, this time it gave me a really hard time. I already used it before, but it is fairly new. So I don't know, I guess there was some kind of temperature change or something in the shipment process. I have no idea, but something is off about that tone, and I struggled with the consistency of my paint for some reason here. I usually don't struggle as much when it comes to these paints. I'm just used to them at this point. And honestly, for me, this is a comfort zone piece. This is something that I've done before multiple times. But if you do struggle during the painting process and you have issues with consistency, just know you're definitely not alone. I do have issues whenever I try new products that I don't know as well. And I know a lot of people who struggle with the consistency of gouache. Quite honestly, if you do own acrylic gouache, I would use it for a piece like this. It would be perfect for this because it's much easier to layer. And I do own acrylic gouache and I want to use it more, but for this tutorial, I wanted it to also be possible to follow along with traditional gouache. So this would work either way. Just with the blending with acrylic gouache, obviously you have to be super quick because once it's dry, it is waterproof. That is the difference between those two. And with traditional gouache, you can really take your time and you can also reuse the colors on your palette after they dry. Since this is a YouTube tutorial, it is fairly quick, but if you want some more step-by-step instructions for a similar landscape painting, then check out my free mini course. I will leave a link in the description box below. Don't forget to sign up and follow along. So at this point in the whole process, I am just coloring everything in and just trying to cover as much of the white surface as possible. By the way, that turquoise tone in the middle, I will darken that up in a minute. So if you find that your colors in your landscapes are a little bit too similar, they're lacking contrast in certain areas, there's absolutely no shame in going over them again and just changing up colors. Also, sometimes you might need a second layer. I found that with this piece, since I watered down my paint quite a bit, I needed a few more layers to get rid of all of the streakiness. Here you can see I'm darkening up that area. I just want a little bit more contrast here. I also added in branches to those trees. Those are not weird bluish clouds in the background. Those are trees. And I just added a few details to the greenery. You can go simple with this, or you can really go all in and add tons and tons of details. It also depends on how big your scale is for this piece. I find that with landscapes like this, you could easily spend many hours on this and have a lot of fun adding details, and I've done that before. This time I wanted to keep it fairly simple, but still enough details that I'm happy with the result. Here you can see I'm adding another layer to the trees, just carefully painting around the branches. Ideally, it would be opaque on the first layer, but I don't know. I really was not having the easiest time with this painting, I have to admit, even though it's a rather simple painting for me. But I've been facing a lot of art block lately, and I just, for some reason, have to find my groove again. I don't know. I've been struggling with that a bit. And also something super strange is that the white paint, it kind of smelled like a very strong cleaning product. Like, I don't know, not like bleach, but like a very strong something that you would clean something with. I don't know how else to describe it. I've never had that before with Winsor & Newton gouache. I don't know what's up with these paints. I really don't know. I was just trying to kind of make the piece work in a way. And honestly, I'm not mad about how it turned out. It's looking quite good. I was just having to force myself to continue with this one, and it took me much longer and a lot of sittings, and yeah, it was just not easy. And I'm sharing all of that with you to show that that's also normal and part of the creative process, and really doesn't matter if you're a beginner artist or a super professional who works with the greatest companies in the world. It really doesn't matter where you are on that spectrum. You're probably most likely going to hit a slump every now and then, and it's just part of it, unfortunately. I'm now slowly hoping to get out of it again. It's getting a little bit better, but I just find myself very critical of my work for some reason, even though there's nothing that wrong with it. I know that. But yeah, this voiceover is all over the place. Excuse me. It's been quite a rough time for some reason. I don't know. And you can see I am doing all of these branches. If you know my channel, you know that I've been doing things like this for many years. I have a lot of tutorials that are similar to this, and also my mini course goes into much more detail where I actually describe every single step. So please don't be mad at me that I don't describe every single step here. I never know what to really say in these voiceovers, because usually I just end up saying, and now I'm adding more detail, and then now I'm adding more strokes, and now I'm doing this, and it's kind of becoming repetitive, and I don't know. I just feel a lot of pressure to perfectly describe what I do, but you can already see what I'm doing. And I know that if I follow a tutorial, it's usually more that I take it as an inspiration rather than I follow every single stroke. And this is kind of what this tutorial is for. You can take this as an inspiration. You can also, if you want to follow along, watch it multiple times, pause and mute the sound so that you can really go at your own pace if you want to. But it's more of a catching up with you and kind of giving you an inspiration kind of thing. You can see that I did this tree here more in the foreground, and I created this very muted brown tone. I just mixed all of the colors that I had picked for this piece so that the brown tone would fit with the rest. I could have also just used a brown tone straight away, but I wanted this very muted color, and I achieved that by mixing a lot of the yellow, Naples yellow deep, so kind of an orange tone, and magenta, and I also mixed green into it. So that way you get a brown. Browns are usually achieved by just adding a bunch of colors together that you usually wouldn't really want to mix together. That's usually how you get a brown tone. And I just mix and add in colors until I'm happy. I mean, I know my way around color theory theoretically, but honestly, when it comes to mixing browns, it's just a trial and error, and that's often the case for me anyways when it comes to mixing. So if you find that you're having a hard time achieving the color that you want to, I encourage you to just keep trying and just keep on mixing. And sometimes I have to remind myself of that as well, that it's okay to take your time with that, and you don't have to have the color that you want on the first try. You can keep on adding colors, and usually anyways I mix way too little paint because I'm scared of wasting paint. And so if I take some more time and need some more additional paint to mix, it's usually a good thing, because at least then I have enough paint on my palette in that color. And even then sometimes it's not enough and I have to remix colors, and remixing is pretty hard. Achieving the exact same tone again, it's very close to impossible with gouache. I mean, I've gotten very close, but it's really, really hard. So rather mix a little bit more. And I mean, sometimes you just have some paint left over, but I usually just mix the leftover paint into my next paintings. I usually just use a very dirty palette, and that way I keep on reusing my dirty colors from last time, and that way I don't waste as much paint. And now I'm adding these darker branches as well, because I thought it just still needed something, and in order to get some contrast in, I needed it to be darker. Honestly, initially I wanted the lighter branches to be only lighter branches in the foreground and only darker things in the background, and kind of have a gradient from dark to light from the top to bottom. But I feel like this way it looks a lot better, because now we have a little bit of the dark color in the bottom as well, and it creates a better composition. And then with the Naples yellow, I just did some dots, and now we have a few fireflies as well. And if you'd like to see another gouache painting tutorial, then check out this video next.